Welcome back to Pixel Pulse. Welcome back to the channel. Hi, how are you? It's been a minute. I'm gonna try and calm down because I've done a couple of takes with this topic and I realized that I got pretty angry pretty quickly, which doesn't exactly fit the lo-fi vibes that I'm going for with this video. Hope you're doing well. Hope that your, family and loved ones are doing okay as we get into the colder months and it's starting to be a lot less sunny, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this video. The fact that mental health is a hell of a thing and it's something that everybody is struggling with right now. And I used to think that I was just stuck in my bubble and that was, why I was seeing all of this. Oh, it's just American politics. Oh, it's just the internet, so forth and so on. I cropped up a video from Jacksepticeye while I was playing Ready or Not this afternoon after making the a millionth phone call trying to find a job in the field that I want to work in and that I have credentials for. And I was just feeling depressed and feeling like there was nothing I could do, that there was no hope. And then I saw Jacksepticeye talking about the same topic, and it really made me realize very quickly that everybody's feeling it. It's not an American problem. It's not a me problem. It's a global problem at this point. And I'm gonna clip in the video either here or in the description, but Jack talking about all of this put everything in perspective for me, and I highly encourage you to go and watch it because it really explains everything. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, and I pray that it will touch somebody, bless somebody who's going through a similar struggle, and that they will feel a little less alone, they will feel a little less crazy, like I did when I heard from Jack. I mean, I don't know that I'm of that stature of YouTuber, but, I have been most of my teenage to adult life, but more specifically and more apparent than ever, I have been depressed. And I don't realize it until I realize that there's little hints and clues throughout my day, I guess. And I'm trying to get more comfortable with the pause because I talk really fast and my mouth gets ahead of my brain and I stutter a lot. But, so if you hear me pause, I haven't left the conversation. I'm still here. I'm still talking to you. It's gonna be okay. But I'm thinking before I open my big mouth. But generally speaking, I think losing my grandmother rocked me harder than I thought consciously was aware of it doing. And that's played a large part of it because it's kind of like, funny enough, going back to Jacksepticeye, when he lost his father and him talking about how it F's with you existentially, I kind of was like, oh, I've never thought of it that way, you're probably right. This is my first taste of it. And I imagine as I get older, it's only downhill from here as far as these thoughts and what to do with them. But suffice it to say that I've realized very quickly that life is very short. And I have a lot of regrets with life. I have a lot of things that I'm thankful for, and I'm thankful that I work for the fire department. I'm thankful that the door is still open for me to go back to working in EMS because I'm starting to realize that maybe my department just sucked. And I actually like working in EMS, and that's been a hard topic for me to breach with myself because I don't want to be self-critical. Because, a lot of the world will tell you, oh, don't be self-critical, don't be a negative Nancy. And the fact of the matter is sometimes you do have to have an honest and hard conversation with yourself. Quite frankly, I haven't been thinking about it this entire time, but I'm squeezing my sock and playing with it with my left hand, whilst my right hand gestures to the camera that is not there and not on, whilst I talk to you, and I realize that I have a big problem with stimming. I don't know if it's ADHD, or if it's autism, or if it's a little bit of both, but there's just a lot of different ways that my brain is not normal, and I'm trying to learn what that means for how I go about my day-to-day life, and how to be at peace with it, and how to accept the weirdness of life, accept the weirdness of me, instead of thinking that I'm weird and I'm crazy and nobody will ever love me and nobody will ever care about me. It boggles my mind that you all keep coming back and listening to me spew these random thoughts onto the screen or through these headphones that you're listening to or what have you, and that you care. And in a lot of ways, I use this platform to, you know, have this kind of relationship with you guys, to talk things out, kind of like in a very Steve Blue's Clues kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, you know that I'm not there with you. I know I'm not there with you, but through the comment section in these different forums and chats, we can have a conversation and try and deal with these things. But I also realize that there are some of you that'll take it and you'll go a little too far, and you'll start to think that I am, you know, you'll start to hit on me, and that's not me trying to be arrogant. I've genuinely had it happen, and I don't mean like friends, I mean strangers here. I'm talking about people I don't know. So I try to walk a fine line. But suffice it to say, getting back onto the topic, getting the train back on the rails, I've been depressed, and I've tried to keep a good outlook on it and not be self-critical, because, you know, you remember Jim Carrey used to say, it's like being depressed just means that your body needs deep rest. So I'm trying to allow myself the time and the space to not feel like, everything is on fire, everything needs to be taken care of right now. But generally speaking, you know, I'm only one me, and I kind of wanted to just like get a lot of stuff off of my chest. I had a very rambly monologue during that American Truck Sim stream that was about the whole SAF drama, and I felt like he didn't really get the point across that I was trying to, because the main thing that sticks in my craw with that whole situation is a lot of people were critical about me making the Why I'm Leaving video, right? And a lot of people took it as a jab to SAF. I grew up on FiveM. Like, as far as content I watched as a kid, I watched Bay Area Bugs and Ocean and everybody else, just like everybody else. And, you know, the last thing I want to do is hurt an entity or community that has done so much to contribute to my childhood, like my teenage years. Like, you know, these YouTubers were about as important to my teenage years as, you know, like Steve and Blue's Clues was to my childhood. So, I mean, let that sink in for a minute. Ocean was probably one of the first people outside of my family, outside of my parents, like in a direct way, to help me be self-critical and self-conscious and realize that I can have good intentions and go about them the worst possible ways. And I had never been challenged like that before. Sure, I've been told no plenty of times in my life, and I'm not one of those kids by any means, but it was the first time I had had somebody get in my face and holler in my collar and basically say, you know, you need to take a step back because you acted a damn fool. And nobody had done that with me before. So it's like, in all of these different ways, I'm very grateful and I owe great debt to San Andreas Heights. I never wanted to just shit on SAF. But there's certain people and certain things that needs to be called out, but I think I was more right than I realized back then when I made the video that the entire community right now is fucked. It's fucked. I don't know if it's beyond repair, but it's absolutely insane, and it's because I can only assume that a high concentration of a lot of people who are on the younger end of the spectrum, who are recluse or have problems socializing and turn to games for one reason or another. I think when a lot of those people get into one space, you're going to have a lot of trauma, you're going to have a lot of anxiety, and even to a certain degree, you're going to have a lot of horniness. You're going to have a lot of that too, which is just kind of one of the symptoms of the whole thing. I've seen more than I ever have recently with FiveM. People being very quick to label certain people pedos. And while yes, there are some who are actual, like, I like children, or just straight up like, you know, Diddy the diddlers, if you will. Like, there are those people, don't get me wrong, but an 18-year-old fooling around with a 17-year-old is not a pedophile, he's an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, you have to walk a fine line. That word can ruin somebody's reputation, and if it jumps off this little thing we call the internet, it can ruin somebody's fucking life. So really, we need to be careful with throwing that word around. We need to be careful about constantly worrying about what people are doing with their sexuality. And whilst, you know, yes, protect kids, honestly check in if things are unconsensual or things are involving minors. Cover your ass, obviously, as a, you know, community manager or admin or staff member or whatever you are in your community. But try to do it in a loving way that acknowledges the sensitivity of the situation when it's warranted. When somebody has earned that respect or has clearly just had an error that is completely just a fuck up, more so than being intentionally malicious. Especially if they're younger, But here's the thing, right? On the same topic, a multitude of different people have been getting into this whole thing about the whole Diva Jilly drama. And it boggles my mind. For those of you who don't know, Jillian from No Pixel, Diva Jilly, Plashma, Thoroughbred, that gal. I've talked about her on the channel before. I'm gonna have a disclaimer of bias here. She's, you know, she's a very talented woman in my mind. Outside of the game, off the camera, but, you know, a lot of it bleeds through the camera, and that's why I've, you know, been quick to sing her praises in the past, and, you know, so I'm coming with a disclaimer that I'm coming from this from the perspective of slightly being a fan, I guess you could say. You know, I don't watch as much No Pixel as I used to. I started watching after, or right around a little bit before Max became this whole chief mayor person, like taking on both of these roles at the same time, and that pissing everybody off. I was sick, I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and Phoenix sent it to me, Shaw, however you know her, had sent me some clips or a stream from No Pixel, and I started watching Jilly's content. And over time, you know, I began to like it, and it was better roleplay than I ever would have expected out of a community like No Pixel. Because one of the things psychologically is when you come up on V-menu servers and so forth and so on, I remember there was two communities that would always be labeled the devil as long in every community I had been in that was V-menu based and was bigger in size, and that was Department of Justice roleplay and No Pixel. Were both constantly labeled the devil incarnate, could do no good, had no good roleplay, just bad all the way around. I quickly was dispelled of those, you know, notions once I actually took the time to watch some of the streamers. Yeah, are there bad role players? Yeah, but there's people who suck at RP in every community. I spent hours and hours on end trying to figure out how to treat a patient in us EMS in San Andreas Finest who was playing a character that just constantly made it impossible. They had like a phobia of people touching them. They just would, like, every time I would begin any form of treatment, and all of it was verbalized consent, and this is before I even went to school, mind you. But, you know, we were taught a lot of this, you know, it's like verbalized consent, may I do this, do you mind if I, okay, I'm gonna start doing, and they would just get up and run away every time I touched them. Treating them was impossible. And eventually, if I didn't feel like getting a report or getting cussed out, you know, so I just kept trying, and eventually they let me do my thing. But suffice it to say, that is the absolutely epitome of horrible roleplay. And honestly, you know, it's like, I said that as an analogy or an illustration rather, like, there are people who suck. I've dealt with people who have main character syndrome, and so forth and so on. But No Pixel actually has some decent role players in the whitelisted server. And I'm not a fan of economy servers, if I'm being completely honest. I'm willing to give one a try, if I don't have to pay to get in or some bullcrap like that. But generally speaking, you know, I'm not against economy servers or anything. Or, excuse me, no, other way around. I'm against economy servers, and this is why. Most of them set you up to where you're going to have one main character, and you're going to have a couple of others. But if you don't play those characters and they don't go and do their jobs, then they'll just stay broke. So you got to break them out and be like, oh yeah, I haven't taken out Bob in a while, let me go play Bob. Well, Bob is broke, so you can't get anything done. That's kind of my main worry with economy communities, you know? And everybody's looking to economy servers as the way to fix everything, as the future of FiveM. I don't think that that is, and I'm trying to provide advice and guidance to whoever will listen, but a lot of people don't want to listen, and that's okay. Everybody has to do their own thing. But I think truly what is going to make FiveM work is a future focus, but one that is not economy based, and it's going to take some creativity. I think if we look more at Dungeons and Dragons as the style of, okay, let's set up different, you know, conditions for people to roleplay it. Kind of like what Ocean did with the whole virus thing. I think a lot of things, a lot of good can be born out of that, especially if the consent is there from the beginning. And people are, you know, consensual and talk out the rules of the playing field beforehand in a manner that, like I said, gives room for creativity, but just sets boundaries that, I don't know, a lot of people get so caught up in the weeds of metagaming and this, that, and the other, and power gaming, and explicit rules about attendance and so forth and so on. I think that's the second biggest killer of FiveM is attendance. I loved Aspiring Gaming's 1 hour every 30 days rule. Unfortunately, they don't roleplay at times when I would be going to get on FiveM. Like at 6 p.m. Eastern like normal people. So, like, when I say normal people, I mean like every other FiveM community I've ever been in. And it wasn't even always this way of this 3 to 6 or 3 to 5, you know, thing that they're doing nowadays. Patrol was still going on well past 6 p.m. Eastern, back when I met Nate, back in 5 years ago in 2019, when I was in Aspiring originally. So, I don't know what's going on with that, but, well, I left gracefully and left that situation recently, like just a couple nights ago, and, yeah, your girl got banned, but we'll come back to that. Different rant for a different day. Basically, it was kind of the revolving door ban, but, like, it's been 5 years, and I come back every other year, maybe, over the span of 3 years. This is my 3rd time, but there's usually a long period in between, you know? So, I don't know, the whole ban thing it's stupid to me, but also, you know, there's a girl named Nikki who keeps coming back and forth and keeps just coming into the community just to start drama and leave. So, I get it. I get why it exists. It just kind of stupid, especially when you're saying, you know, well, I've been in active, you know, talks with COC about, hey, I want to get on. It's just every time I get on, nobody's around. So, you know, it's like I asked about an MLOA, about seeing what I could do. You know, my situation, I was transparent with them about my situation, and I was trying to remove myself from the situation. But anyways, like I said, different story for a different day. But this is the kind of attitude that people take towards attendance. And I think that that's unhealthy, and that's something that we have to honestly move away from. But anyways, so, back to the main topic, like Diva Chili, right? So, her husband, alleged husband, goes and jumps on Reddit and goes, my girlfriend's cheating. And this is the, like, you ever seen those videos? It's like, you know, the War of 1812 oversimplified. This, that, or the other oversimplified. This is the oversimplified version. Dude posts a Reddit thread about, you know, hey, you know, the love of my life, Jillian is cheating on me with Maximilian Thoroughbred or Moon, I think is his username. And, you know, we've been married IRL for, what did she say, 7 years, 5 years? I don't remember what it was. Excuse me. And, you know, he's doing all this, and she says that's not the case, that's not what's going on, and I have receipts for everything. And she comes on video, and she brings all of her receipts, and she explains everything. Which she doesn't have to, because it's really nobody's business, her sex life, or if she's being faithful or not. That's not really anybody's business. But she goes and records this video, or streams, I think she streams, and goes and basically just bears her soul. And there have been plenty of time where I have gone on stream or onto the channel to set the record straight because there's people running around trying to create a narrative about me that isn't true. And I get it, that you can get caught so much in defending yourself that you don't take the time to... Sorry, I was just making sure my phone wasn't ringing. You don't take the time necessary to acknowledge your own mistakes within everything. So, I get it, right? I completely understand how it could happen, but because she wasn't overly self-critical, but because she didn't cry and this, that, and the other, a lot of people were like, oh, well, you weren't abused, you weren't in an abusive relationship, you didn't go through this, that, and the other. And some people went as far as to tell her to kill herself or that she was a worthless e-whore. And honestly, what are we doing here? Like, I'm not saying you have to believe every word she says or, you know, agree with her or absolve her, but that's just it. None of this is your business. And as long as it's not affecting how business was conducted with DOJ within that community and within NoPixel, you know, who she was sleeping with isn't any of your concern. And it just kind of floored me, and I kind of was taken aback, and I was like, if I had a daughter and she had to deal with this, whether she's 30-something like Jilly is, or she was 18 like some of my friends are, this would be appalling to me, and I would tell my kid to just delete their channel. It would absolutely break my heart. And I think this is the thing that a lot of us who are, you know, on the middle end of it, Gen Z, up to the older end of Gen Z, a lot of our parents didn't want us on the internet and tried to shelter us from a lot of this stuff. And I think we're slowly realizing why, because there's some crazy MFs out there. I mean, it just really, you shouldn't be speculating about whether or not there were quote-unquote DOJ freak-offs. Like, that's not your place. But this is where we're at. A lot of people, I think Ken's even touched on this himself, a lot of people have acknowledged that, like, Chain Gang fanboys are absolutely unhinged, and there's some Jilly fangirls that can be unhinged, but, you know, all of this cult of personality surrounding your favorite streamer or whatever, you shouldn't be leaving hate comments, you shouldn't be, you know, why are you so obsessed and devoted to some stuff happening on a video game that's honestly in a community that's failing anyways, at least in my opinion, that's slowly dying anyways? Why should you be obsessed with all of this? And then the kicker is, as I always say, the more attention you give to all of this, the more you feed the monster. They're getting money from the revenue off of your views. So I just don't understand why any sane person would do this. Now, you know, I've tried to talk about this for a long time, of just dealing with mental health, understanding when you've gotten too deep down the silo or the rabbit hole, and getting out of the whole FiveM space and going to touch grass. And I want to implore you again today, because I feel like the meaning of that why I left SAF video got lost. Frankly, Frankly, my biggest beef was with Dodd, and I left because I thought Dodd was going to run fire into the ground, and fire was, it was special to me, it was important to me, and I didn't want to see it blow up. So I removed myself from the equation, and I told Isabel, and, you know, had said it, I think even publicly on the channel, was like, I'll never go back to SAF unless invited by somebody, namely her, Ocean. A kid who I had helped, you know, mentor within the department. Not like that means anything in the grand scheme of things, because it's a video game at the end of the day. But a kid who was important to me asked me if I would come back. So I tried to come back. And he told me a bunch of rumors about how people didn't want me around. So I left. And guess what had happened? I bumped into one of those people that I think he was in reference to, and they said that they had no problems with me and they wished I had come back. You know, this, that, and the other, da-da-da, fa-la-la. I'm sick of the drama. I'm sick of having to look over my shoulder and constantly wonder what people are thinking. I just can't be bothered to deal with it. And this, again, is my entire plea. Touch some grass. There's a big world out there. Do something besides FiveM. I know I'm one to talk. I'm trying to have a healthy balance, and so far it's been a lot better for me not being on FiveM every night, not chronically being online. But at the end of the day, people are only going to hear what they want to hear, and they're only going to believe what they want to believe. Again, just to formally, because I'm probably going to delete that stream because it got rambly and everything and slightly incoherent. But, just for full transparency's sake, right? My problems with Dodd were this. Well, hold on. Let me backtrack before I go and explain this. So I'm gonna try and make this a brief topic because I really don't want to keep rehashing this, but I want my true feelings out there on the internet. So basically that it's known how I felt and, you know, kind of my motivations for doing what I did, and that nobody thinks that I, you know, if anybody thinks there's beef, they'll either know that we have beef, or if it hasn't been said in this video, it's completely a rumor. So I was upset that Dodd did not pick me for his O2 position, because we had history, we had been in the department together for a long time, on and off obviously, but he left too, so it's not like, you know, he can say he's been there consecutively, but even still, he had been there since the trucks were gray. Like, I get it. But he had known me for a long time and I had the experience, and I was helping him a lot with training in 2021. I was doing a lot of volunteer work for training, and he had told me that he was going to put in the paperwork so that when he left, or something to that effect, that King would be able to take over with training, and we could work together on that. I talked to King, and she was like, no record has been left for me of you being anything. And, you know, to me, that's kind of suspect. You know, say what you want about King, but, I mean, at that time, everybody was cool. You know, I don't get why there should have been any record or problem, you know, unless it was just purely an oversight. And granted, things could have gone differently, right? King could have just put me where I was supposed to be, you know. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. I wasn't really too worried about it. I was just like, why didn't Dodd put me there to begin with? But, you know, I didn't think too heavily of it, but we had, like, that's how long we had been doing. Me, him, and Roth, we had been heavily involved in the training stuff, either volunteer or on paper, with the fire department in SAF. That was back in 2021. So 2020 was 23? When we're, you know, he's taking over as chief, he's trying to get his ducks in a row. I would not have felt some kind of way if he hadn't picked a fresh lieutenant to be the O2 of the department. Sure, he might have already been in COC and had COC experience, but it made no sense to me when he had people like me who he had been in the department with longer. It just didn't make sense to me. And I have little to no ill will against Snyder. Snyder's done nothing to wrong me, necessarily. If anything, it seems like Snyder would go along to get along with a lot of Dodd's policies. Dodd was the chief who was very much so more concerned with his external image with other departments than he was with actually making sure his own department was functioning and fun for the players within it. What do I mean by that? The first time I got a glimpse of this was I had a call on the 13, or the Western Highway, past Great Ocean Hospital, and it was for a downed officer, I want to say, and they told me where the spike strips were. They were on the north end of the tunnel, in the southbound lane. So I came from the southbound to avoid, the spike strips. Ran them over, got pulled into the office by Dodd, and he accused me of lying, said it was on video, and I was like, I don't think I ran them over. I was like, it could be a lapse of memory or judgment or whatever. Like, I could have just not noticed. But, I was like, I didn't run any spike strips over, and if I did, it's not my fault. And we had a conversation about it, and he was like, well, why are you lying to me, and all these different things, and him and hawing and carrying on. And ultimately, we ended up talking out of game afterwards, and I was like, hey dude, what the heck is that all about? And he's like, well, it hurts me that, other departments are scared to drive around fire because they're scared of, the firefighters hitting them, whatever. So it's like, our approval ratings when it comes to, operation of apparatus are so low that, they laugh at us. And so putting everybody back through evoc who had the smallest mistake in his mind was the solution. That should have been the first red flag that he cared more about images and his insecurities than he cared at all about running the department. The other thing was, it was a giant cluster about people's characters either having too many mental health issues or it was their kids, the kids of firefighter characters were running amok. And so he started cracking down on it. You know why the Collins Foundation existed? Why I created that law firm that ended up getting tanked effectively after I left, I heard? It existed because Dodd had plans to try and basically fire a certain firefighter for having mental health problems. He was actively trying to gun somebody, and who was actively seeking help, and wasn't really a big problem at the time. And honestly, I'm just gonna come out on the carpet and name names here. It was Laker. I didn't even really like Laker, but I felt it was such bullcrap that I was like, yeah, if nobody else will take the case, I'll defend you. If you gotta take it to court, you getting, fired, because that's illegal. You can't fire somebody for having an illness, if you will. You have to give them an opportunity to take care of it. That was problem number 2. But there was also other different things, just generally speaking, like, I know Ripley got kidnapped and she didn't plan it, had no clue what was going to happen. But because the fire department, or mainly Dodd, wanted drama to be kept out of the station, Civ things kept out of the station for operational purposes, instead of coordinating with Civ to get a rule made, he decided to punish players within the department first, and then I think seek to get a rule made is what ended up happening. But I say all of these different things to just kind of illustrate the problem. This was the type of leadership we had in the department. And granted, this is in character, but from the out-of-character conversations I had with Snyder, something tells me he felt this to some degree. If not, he was going along to get along, like he's been saying, at least I've been told through the grapevine. But, I had a conversation with him in character, and he was like, you've been here longer than me. He was like, you should know full and well how everything has gotten out of hand and people don't keep their damn kids in line. And he started going off at the jaw about how, you know, people need to just start disciplining their kids and keeping their kids in check. Like it was an in-game issue, when in reality, we both knew what we were talking about was an out-of-character issue. And it really kind of gutted me that my tenure in the department was being used against me. You know what I mean? Because the fact of the matter was, yeah, like Snyder admitted, I had been in the department longer than him, even if not consecutively. And with that should have come some wisdom to settle down, take a breather, and realize that maybe I'm trying to impart some wisdom that you catch more flies with vinegar, or excuse me, with honey than you do vinegar. You know. But it seems to me that it seemed to me at the time that that whole philosophy was lost on them, and namely Dodd's attitude, because Dodd also did a lot to, frankly, break down, I don't know, I can't speak for the other people, but break down my self-esteem and just kind of shit on my ability as a leader constantly in different intervals at different given times, and undermine me when I was trying to do stuff for PIO and what have you. Basically, I would try to issue like disciplinary action and try to basically be like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z. And Dodd would just come in and be like, oh, it's okay, nothing's really wrong, I'll go and talk with winners. So he made me look like an idiot on more than one occasion with PIL. And because basically, I was just asking people to be active, because I was like, why are you in the subdivision if you're not going to do stuff with the subdivision? He said I was running a kind of pseudo-authoritarian regime where I was asking too much of them and asked them to no-life the heck out of it. But, I mean, by the same token, it was also put to me that it was kind of a sink-or-swim situation. My lieutenancy was riding on that department functioning well. That division, which honestly, as I'm saying all this and thinking about all this, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it was just all a giant setup so that I would fail and I would fade into the, you know, dark of the night. But, you know, between that and then icing on the cake, you remember how Ethan was driving around all these expensive cars on a firefighter salary? I have it on good authority that the whole tax business of trying to get Civ to introduce taxes in a video game started with him trying to target Fire, Dodd that is. I have a million reasons to not like Dodd, and what he was doing with Fire was basically the main reason I left. Sure, the whole tax thing was separate, but I'm finding out ultimately it really wasn't. So at the end of the day, I dipped because my favorite department was being ran into the ground and I wasn't going to sit around and watch. I had no clue that things were going to change, I had no clue that things were going to get better. So I had once, you know, Isabel took over, I always left the door open. I'll come back and help if somebody needs me or asks me. But that whole BS with, well, people don't want you, or people are worried that you're going to cause drama or whatever, and then I start to leave, and it's like, well, people don't like, or people like you, what do you mean? It's like, oh, that's just hearsay, you can't worry about that. Too much high school type drama, and I'm not dealing with it anymore. But I will say this much. For everything that happened to my self-esteem during that time, as far as like being a lieutenant in the game was, I found a treasure trove of old videos that didn't know that I had, and I'm gonna be uploading them on the second channel, the gaming channel, because I want to go back and look over my lieutenancy, and I want to be able to sit there like I did the other night when I found the folder with a little bit of pride and say, yeah, I did good, I did okay for the tools I was given. And that's all I can ultimately ask for. So I'm grateful. I'm happy everything worked out. I'm happy Isabel's doing good and that everything's going great over there, but I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Like, this will probably be the last time that I'm talking about it. But yeah, so that wraps up SAF Chroma in a bubble in a less rambly format than I did on stream with that American Truck Sim stream, and puts everything out there so people don't have to wonder where my head is at, what my intentions are, so forth and so on. That drama can end. And that kind of covers the recent, Diva Chili No Pixel drama. So, this has been Pixel Pulse. I hope that you enjoyed this concept review. Remember, be yourself, be your own guide, follow your own movement, stay queer, quirky, nerdy, whichever applies to you. I'll see you. Entrez-vous and game on. Good night.